Good morning, folks, and thank you so much for being a part of this CCAR CART webinar that will offer you an opportunity to get a sense of what I do and how I do it. This webinar looks at how do I coach or support recovery coaches in performing their roles. It's interesting as I live with heart failure. And again, that's not a morbid issue. It's an opportunity for me to help people to know that so much of my passion and my vision and my efforts at this point in time are to share the things that I've learned. And clearly I've learned a lot from offering recovery coach performance support meetings for CCAR in their recovery community centers. Gosh, I've been doing that for several years now. And over time, I've learned a lot. When Stacy came to me and talked about the webinar for this month, she suggested, would we be able to do a virtual recovery coach performance support meeting? And I always say yes, because I enjoy the challenge. And at some level, in presenting this webinar, I hope you'll walk away with an awareness of how I do what I do, but more importantly, you'll walk away with awareness of what a recovery performance support means and what it might look like. Let me just double check. Is everybody hearing me? Good, 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 good. So how do you begin to satisfy your curiosity and your wonder is what I'm asking you to think about. Again, the concept of wonder, curiosity, and awe is something that many of us have faded away from as we get older. I have a grandson who now is 14 years old, but when he was 8, 9 years old, and maybe even before, his way of getting my attention, his way of getting what he wanted to get, he would say, "Grandpa, I was wondering." As I began to do my work, and I appreciate that I'm learning a science of coaching recovery. I'm learning a science of helping people. And in that science, I'm also developing my own art in doing that. And the overlap of the circles of my science and my art is wonder. And that's what I'm offering us an opportunity to focus on as we move through this work. This is a 30-page PowerPoint. And in many ways, some of the pages will not be explored in great depth because some of the pages, I think hopefully to your interest as well as to your benefit, will be pages where you can take this information, make it your own, and do some of your own recovery coach performance support, especially in the realm that we're talking about today, which is the opportunity to think about stress and anxiety in a holiday season. So with that in mind, let me begin to move through this information. And again, as questions or comments come up, I'll try to capture them. But again, we've got an hour, and it may be a long PowerPoint. But if this were truly a virtual meeting, it would be 2 hours long, and you'd have an opportunity to speak back to me and connect with me. But make your best efforts to do that through chatting through the typing process. When I think about recovery coaching performance support, it's a collaborative learning community. If you've been around me long enough, you know that my belief is that whatever I'm doing, in that process of doing, in that process of helping, in that process of coaching, in that process of mentoring, and in that process of teaching, I am a learner, a doer, and a teacher. Andras Arian's work has taught me that learning is finding out what you already know. Doing is demonstrating that you know it. And teaching is reminding others that they know just as well as you do. That's the challenge and the beauty of this work for me. By actively listening, by wondering and teasing and making an effort to satisfy my curiosity, I ask good questions while discovering and managing my stuff. And that's the recovery coach performance as I'm treating people as resources that I utilize in this collaborative learning community. Treating people as resources is critical to a process of collaboration. So many times people will come to us, stroke our egos, and put us in a position that we know what we know and they want us to teach them what we know. I call a halt to that process because I want to know what you know. If we're going to meet people where they're at, if we're going to truly listen actively, if we're going to truly satisfy our curiosity and our wonder relative to how we will help this human being who we are actively listening to, we need to learn how to begin to posit good questions based upon that wonder and that curiosity. And in that wonder and that curiosity, and in that process of treating people as resources, I discover and manage my stuff. So much of discovering and managing my stuff is my ability to tell the truth without blaming or judging. That's discovering and managing my stuff. My stuff is there. I choose not to judge my stuff. I choose not to blame myself for my stuff. I have a responsibility to work on my stuff, but not in the context of in my process of helping another human being. The other side of that coin is that I don't judge and blame the person I'm trying to help. That's not helpful in this process. If we're going to help people to creatively solve the problems that we are blessed and honored that they will come to us for that help. So when you look at the Recovery Coach performance support in relation to this stool, there's an ongoing practice and learning of skills and techniques. That's the science of coaching, but it's also the science of recovery. As you coach, as you utilize this science of coaching recovery, allow yourself to utilize that science in your own recovery process. We're all learners, doers, and teachers. We are all learning, living, and leading recovery. In leading recovery, it's not so much of coaching, but in leading recovery, it's leading my life through a process of recovery that works well for me. I can remember times when I was helping other people that I wouldn't take my own suggestions, and don't fall into that trap. That's where learning, doing, and teaching, that's where the appreciation and the acceptance of this collaborative learning partnership or community that we want to engage in becomes so valuable. The ongoing and learning and practicing the skills of techniques, and the technique of asking good questions, the technique of listening, the technique of complementing what I'm hearing with thoughts about and checking out with that person that I'm helping what I'm hearing. And discovering and managing your stuff demands that we have an ongoing process of developing our personal and professional selves and roles. So much of the work that I'm embracing now, so much of the work that I am looking to produce in my effort to share what I've learned over the 30 plus years, almost 40 years of my own recovery process, as well as the special opportunity that I have in the beginning of that recovery process to help others, has been in identifying the roles that I play. Over the last 10 years of doing Recovery Coach Academy, crystal clear became the roles and responsibilities of a coach. I think it's important that we spend a lot of time understanding those roles and the ability to practice those roles with integrity, to not allow ourselves to be conflicted in what that role is. You know, our ability to stay in our lane is a part of that role conflict that we don't want to get into. So again, developing personal and professional self and roles is critical to my ability to manage as well as discover my stuff. Recovery Coaching Performance Support is a collaborative learning opportunity that I share a meeting preamble at the beginning of each of the the meetings that we have. And the meeting preamble states, welcome to our Recovery Coach Performance Support Collaborative Learning Meeting. RCPS provides a caring and inclusive community to help Recovery Community Center volunteer recovery coaches and others to learn and grow personally and professionally in the performance of our roles in living. Notice I said our roles in living. Our roles in living embrace our roles in recovering, our roles in helping others to recovery, and our roles that are several and diverse as we live our lives. The activities and occupations is a word that doesn't necessarily speak about work or career. It speaks about daily activity, and I'll give you a bit of a glimpse of that in a minute. But the activities and occupations of Recovery Coach Performance Support are there to help us to develop our art of learning, living, and leading recovery and coaching. If you are someone with lived experience, a major part of your ability to discover and manage your stuff, a major ethical consideration and responsibility that you have to this work is to appreciate how you are learning, living, and leading your own recovery process. You can't bring to another person what you haven't brought to yourself. I've learned that in a hard way over time. So your ability to develop this art of learning, living, and leading recovery and coaching is a part of your responsibility to yourself and to recovery-oriented systems of care and organizations that you work with, but most importantly, to the recoveries that you work with. The occupations and activities of Recovery Coach Performance Support provide a collaborative care and learning community to practice the science of coaching recovery that many of us learn in Recovery Coach Academy, and bolded perform the roles of recovery coaches that we've learned. Performing the role is what we do. We perform the role of recovery coaches. We perform the role of living recovery. We perform the role of parents in recovery. We perform the role of helpers. We perform the roles of employees, and on and on and on. And if we're not paying attention to these roles, and if we don't have clarity around these roles, that these roles become ambiguous, we get lost. You know, if you think about adolescent development is a time of identity or role confusion. The same applies to the work that we do in our work. We gain an identity as a coach of recovery. We gain an identity as a person in active recovery, or we can be confused in that process. And we have identity confusion. So when I connect the problems in living that I experienced in my active addiction, I connect to the struggles that I had in adolescence and beyond. That's why so many of us might be stuck in adolescence at 30 or 40 years old. I share this image with you because this is where a lot of my work focuses now. But this is when I talk about performance, and there it is in that lower circle. This is how performance is achieved. And many of us don't appreciate this for what it is. This comes from the occupational science curriculum of the University of Southern California. And I really, as I was thinking about performance and occupations and roles and the person in the environment, this came up for me. And I've been using it for the last 7 or 8 years with great benefit. I mean, this is the core of the work that I do in helping people to think about role performance. Think about it. My orientation when I went to University of Connecticut School of Social Work 7 years into my recovery process, because I wanted to gain an advanced degree beyond my Yale degree in economics. I wanted to gain an advanced degree that would give me some position in this field, because I know I wanted to continue in this field. And I had the opportunity to take several courses with a woman named Carol Germain, who talked about the life model of social work practice that clearly fits with this model of performance and the person. Because she talks about, as social workers, we have a person or recovery who lives in an environment who we are making our best effort to help them to make their best fit within that environment. That has a lot to do with what we do in the work that we do. Part of helping people to make their best fit within their environment is helping them to identify recovery capital that's in their environment. But another positive part of helping people to make their best fit as a person in an environment is to also look at the internal recovery capital that they bring to that enterprise. And this image captures that those intrinsic factors of a person is their personal recovery capital. And you see what that is. That speaks to their well-being. A person's quality of life, as depicted in this image, is either enhanced or diminished or blocked by the environment. And those intrinsic factors, those things outside of the person, can be very powerful in empowering that human being to make a better fit, or disempowering or blocking or offering obstacles to that process. Again, as recovery coaches, we are advocates, and we are advocates who help people to develop recovery capital that helps them internally and externally to have their best fit. As part of this concept of developing well-being, improving the quality of life, which is what recovery is about, William White speaks to that very eloquently. The ability to do that is our ability to help people to participate in occupations of daily living that improve their capacity to perform in living their lives with recovery, well-being, improved quality of life. And the overlap of the occupation and the performance circle is occupational performance and participation. We want people to participate in their lives. The ability for a person to lead their lives is to participate in their lives. I can remember where I would isolate, where I didn't stand up and speak up for myself, when I did not participate in my own life. That doomed me to ongoing problems, and it certainly limited the quality of my life as well as my sense of well-being. And these are all pieces when I'm working with recoverees that I introduce them to, and I ask them to think about. See, so much of the work that we do, beyond asking good questions, folks, is getting recoveries to think about things in a way they have not thought about them. I hope I'm stimulating that in you in the course of this work as well, because that's what I do. I ask good questions well. And I do a good job, I believe, and I've been told over the 40-odd years that I've been doing this work, of helping people to think about things in a way they have not thought about them. Recovery Coach Performance Support Collaborative Meeting Preamble speaks to this. A meeting preamble is basically what is read at the beginning of each meeting. As participants in Recovery Coach Performance Supporting meetings, we will be able to develop a way of living and developing the art of coaching recovery. There's that dual nature, that personal and professional nature of what these meetings can be about. It's discussing and strengthening recovery coach role clarity and role integrity. Role integrity speaks to staying in our lane. It's discussing and practicing and performing roles and functions of living and leading recovery. In Recovery Coach Academy, we learn about the roles and responsibilities, the roles and functions of a recovery coach. I think there are 10 of them. Those are the roles that we want to focus on. But we also want to focus on the roles of parenting, and the roles of helping, and the roles of partnership, and the roles of employee. Those are roles that are part of who we are as well, that we must pay attention to. These meetings will help people to communicate and collaborate with peers in sharing and shaping questions and experiences and building versus what we've done in the past, destroying relationships. And this process it also offers opportunity for participants to process difficult and challenging situations with their peers. This is what we make an effort to do in a collaborative working experience. Can you still hear me, folks? So I just had this follow me, but I hope I haven't quit. I haven't quit on it. Okay, good. I'll double check that. So again, this is what the meeting is about. This is how the meeting is introduced by this meeting preamble that goes on to say, as participants in Recovery Coach Performance Support meetings, we will be able to identify and share resources and recovery capital. We will be able to hold one another accountable. We will learn and practice how to ask good questions, how to actively listen, how to discover and manage our stuff, and how to treat each other as resources. I intend to really offer a webinar at some point on treating each other as resources, because I'm not convinced we really know how to do that. Because I'm not even convinced that we know how to treat each other as the human resources of value that we are. And so much of that I know in my own situation has come from continuing to get beyond the shame that has bound me for so long in my active recovery. That's a part of discovering and managing my stuff that here we're talking about 40 years into my process continues. So, let's not assume anything. So in learning and practicing these skills and these strategies and these concepts and the science of recovery and the science of recovery coaching, it's a constant reminder that we're learners, doers, and teachers. Where we best teach what we most need to learn, we got to learn it ourselves to teach it. It's like a sponsor in 12-step programs having a sponsor. You can't pass on what you haven't internalized. And again, that's been a hard lesson to learn over time. The meeting preamble continues as participants in this virtual Recovery Coach Performance Support meeting, meaning that I'm giving you an opportunity to get a taste of what this can be about. We will be able to engage in an experience of what a Recovery Coach Performance Support meeting involves and how I facilitate it. This meeting was facilitated by me in November. The particular meeting that we're going to look at today, I facilitated in 2017 in November, just during the holiday season, with all 3 CCAR Recovery Community Centers. And I provided for participants with a focus on stress and anxiety during the holiday season. I think that's an appropriate meeting to share with you, because I also want you to think about how do we begin to talk about recoveries in this stressful holiday season that produces a lot of anxiety, not only for them, but for ourselves as well. So as participants, you are encouraged to learn, do, and teach the strategies and skills that will be exposed in this webinar. It is suggested to you, as I suggest to participants in the ICPS meetings that I do, it is suggested that people teach what they've learned to someone that they care about or care for. I usually give them the suggestion that you do with, as soon as you leave the meeting or within the day of offering the meeting. And you get to share what you've learned. And it's not about sharing it all, but sharing what impacted you. It's sharing a takeaway. It's practicing, learning, doing, and teaching. As we begin to look at this November 17th Recovery Coach Performance Support meeting that I shared with Recovery Community Centers in Connecticut, the beginning of that is the ability to ask them good questions related to self-care and self-discovery. My work as a social worker, SOULCIAL, and in my whole concept of Soul Help Acts revolves around the concept of empowerment and self-discovery. And many of those questions are questions that I use whether I'm coaching recoveries or I'm acting in the role of a helper. And the questions are, and think about them for yourselves, and think about positing them to recoveries that you might be working with. How does a process of self-discovery and empowerment help self-care? What are the components of self-care, this concept that we speak about so much? What do you most need to learn about self-care? And again, folks, these are questions both for recoverees, for participants in Recovery Coach Performance Support meetings, and most importantly, ourselves. How does stress affect self-care? How does stress affect self-care? How does self-care affect stress? Think about these questions and think about it's an opportunity to get the people that we're helping and hopefully yourselves as well to think about stress and anxiety during the holiday season in a way you may not have thought about them. And again, I'm hoping I'm giving you some cues and clues to some good questions that you might ask to satisfy your curiosity so that you can best discover how you can be helpful to others and to yourselves. And what are you teaching people you care for and about stress care? Do you even teach it? Or do we just leave it? See, one of the things, a paradigm shift that I've had over time, and it clearly applies when I coach and when I mentor and when I do what I do, a clear paradigm shift that I've had is that I do not leave the learning of concepts to hoping that a person gets. I am very intentional in what I want people to learn. One of the roles that recovery coaches play is to help people to learn, in particular, learn about stabilization, learning about the stages of recovery. And those are all lessons that I teach very emphatically. That's not a clinical work. That's a part of my coaching and mentoring and getting people to think about things in a way they haven't thought about them that may lead to a need for clinical work. But clearly, I think is within the province and a clear role that I experience in coaching recovery. Developing the art of supporting or coping with stress and anxiety during the holiday season really speaks to this sharing that I did within the community centers. During this Recovery Coach Performance Learning opportunity, you will be able to identify the pressures, challenges, and stresses of holidays for people living and leading recovery. Explore strategies or tools for intentional, not incidental, intentional stabilization and deepening, which are stages of recovery, deepening of personal recovery in preparation for and in response to holiday season stress. Again, folks, that word preparation could be italicized. It could be bolded. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Performance support speaks to proper preparation. And proper preparation speaks to intentionally helping people to embrace and satisfy their wonder in how am I going to stabilize and deepen my recovery at a time when it's probably most necessary. And when they're anticipating that it's most necessary, or that we as their guides and mentors in a process of recovery can help them to think about it as being necessary. It's identifying the responsibility of a successful recovery coach to role model and teach how to manage stress, anxiety, and recovery during the holiday season. Part of your lived experience is not just the lived experience of active addiction, but it's also your lived experience in recovery. That's what you bring as well. That's the both andness. I am both in recovery and recovering. I am both overcoming the obstacles of living well and living well. And I have a responsibility to share that. And it's to prepare to model the role. It's to prepare to model the role of managing stress, anxiety, and stabilizing recovery during the holiday season. So again, folks, that's about learning, doing, and teaching. It's helping participants in recovery community centers who are volunteer. Many of them are volunteer recovery coaches. Many of them are looking to live through their own anxiety and stress, as well as ourselves, in modeling the role of managing stress and anxiety and stabilizing our own recoveries, especially when there's so much stress that can be related to our humble effort to help other people and our questioning as to how well we're doing that. Yeah, it's there, and admit that it's there. That's a part of discovering and managing our stuff. I am stressed by the opportunity as well as the responsibility of helping another human being. And let's admit that that's a part of the process. And let's be both proactive and preparatory in our ability to move through that process with some wellness, some well-being, and a better quality of life. Here's a circle of life that I like to use a lot. And actually, it shows up in my own logo on Soul Help Acts. And those are the self-care. When we talked earlier about the objectives of this learning, one of them was to identify what are the components of self-care. There they are, folks. I'm not going to repeat them. You know, if you have a subscription, you can get this webinar. This is something I share with recoverees. And I ask them to prioritize what are the self-care activities that they feel they best need to work on. And through that concept of prioritizing them, what might be the recovery capital that we can begin to employ and discover that will help them to work on that. For this particular webinar, we're going to focus on stress mastery. And the question I posit up front is, what are your images of stress? Again, folks, this is for you, but it's also for recoverees. What are your images of stress? And before I share this next page, I want them to think about, how do you image in distress? What are the images of distress, of stress? How do you imagine stress? And what is your stress? So when you think about the images of stress, one of the suggestions or one of the prompters that I use to help them to maybe gain some clarity on how they think about stress and what might be the stress in their lives is this next image. Image in on this image. Look at the different types of stress that we can experience. I mean, look at that child. Look at that egg with the brown egg with the white egg. For me, epitomizes the stress that I experience relative to being different in society. You know, I'm a person of color versus a person who is that white egg. You know, that comes up again in the bucket on the second row, that some of the images of that stress can be sexism, racism, and homophobia. Think about success as being stressful. Think about the fact that there are only 2 times I feel stress, day and night. I mean, this all works, and this helps people to think about it. You know, even to the point of understanding the have-nots. You know, that knot that we feel when we're feeling anxiety and stress is so real. So again, and the one with the target sign, you know, as a person of color in this society, I experience being a target. And that on a daily basis is stressful. So we give our people, so I give recoverees and I give participants in the Recovery Coach Performance Support meetings an opportunity to think about stress. I dare to say that we all have color and no one is invisible. Clearly, 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 clearly. You know, we do such a good job of struggling with difference that no matter what hue we have, there's something that becomes stressful in our existence that is so wrong and so unfair. Well stated, Star. What are the common causes of holiday stress? These is generalized stress, and some of that might be holiday stress. But what are some of the common causes of holiday stress? And again, I give recoveries, I give participants an opportunity to think about it before I share some of the images that have been helpful for me to help people to think about it. So think about in your own lives, what are some of the common causes of holiday stress? Think about in the lives of recovery and asking them a question, a generalized question, where the ability to meet a recovery where they're at is ask a question like this. I go in wondering how are they managing their stress, but I don't bring that up initially. What I do is, what are the common causes you think of stress during holiday times? And they may come up with this pie. Self-stress, i.e. expectations, money, shopping, and commercialization stress, and family and in-law stress, and whatever else they may add to this pie. And again, this isn't, stating this is what it has to be. This is giving people to begin to think about how it might be and what it might be as we think about the stress that's experienced during holidays. And how's this working for you? Again, folks, you'll see throughout this webinar, I'm making an honest effort to offer you some good questions to be able to ask, especially as they relate to some of the images that I share with you. And again, this is a webinar that has a 30-page PowerPoint attached to it, that much of what we're talking about, you have an opportunity to share with whomever you choose to share with, whether it be an individual or, in what this sharing has been about, recovery coach performance support meetings. Have value to people who are in recovery and who are making an honest effort to coach recovery in a volunteer status or beyond. I just wanted to share this image because, again, it gives people a prompt around what some of the triggers of stress and anxiety may be, and some of them may be related to holiday stress. The triggers of anxiety and stress might be major life changes, work, relationship difficulties, financial problems, being too busy, children and family. Our conditioned mind has an inability to accept uncertainty. We feel we need to be certain about everything, and that's not possible. The ability to be open to the outcome and not attached to the outcome helps me to overcome the uncertainty. I don't need to know, and that's a hard one to let go of, but I don't need to know. Another conditioned mind is pessimism versus optimism. It's that negative self-talk that we all have or can be challenged by, and it's unrealistic expectations and perfectionism. And think about these truly can apply to issues of holiday stress and anxiety. And again, this is an image that I suggest that people image in on and come up with their own discussions, their own conclusions, their own thoughts, their own thinking. This is an image that talks about what stress can look like. And again, I like images because it gives you the opportunity for the individual viewing the image to interpret the image. And stress, and this clearly applies to recovery and the recovery process. The stress of feeling I will always let other people down. I am not good enough, which is my shame stuff. And I am a victim, which is another part of my shame stuff. Yeah, self-talk is, important. Not, and I struggle with the word control because, when my life gets unmanageable, then, especially when I'm in a place of fear, fear generally pushes me to the place where I try to control the uncontrollable. When I look at that self-talk piece being very important, it's very important to keep it under care during stress. And for me, care is more manageable than control. Think about that concept. When I get afraid, I try to control what I have no ability or even responsibility to try to control. So I try to always, transition that effort or desire to control to care. How do I take care of myself and this situation to the benefit of myself and the people around me? And so again, it's an opportunity to help people think about stress and anxiety in a way they may not have thought about it. When I think about stress, especially as I do my helping work, which was in my life way before I did the 10 years of Recovery Coach Academy that I'm just moved through. I've been doing this work for 40 years. And much of when I've talked about stress, but more importantly, as I've experienced my own stress, that stress tends to be relative to sickness, whether it be physical, emotional, or spiritual sickness. Too much or too little of something has stressed me out. Relationships have stressed me out. The environment has stressed me out. School and the capacity of service and work has stressed me out. And substance use has stressed me out. So stress takes a lot of different forms. The first step to managing and overcome this stress is to name the stress. And much of what you're going to see in the next few slides relates to our ability to think about managing, naming, and overcoming stress. This is a stress awareness activity that I'm not going to go into depth related to, but it says the first step in stress care is being aware of the signs and symptoms that you are stressed. If you are unwilling to pay attention to the signs and symptoms of stress, you may find yourself distressed, out of energy, unable to function well, and in danger of burning out. Is stress having a negative or harmful effect on your living? Then you give people to look at the different physical, cognitive, i.e. thinking signs of stress, the emotional signs of stress, the relational signs of stress, and the spiritual signs of stress that may be a part of their living. Again, this is something that I put in the hands of recovery. This is something that I put in the hands of participants in Recovery Coach Performance Support meetings and have them do it right after, the session is over, or do it that evening. And once they've done it, I give them an extra copy so that they can offer an opportunity for someone that they care for or care about. That learning, doing, teaching component to this work. How are you coping with stress? Again, if you've been around me long enough, you've seen this image before. And what it really does is help people to assess their current coping and identify whether they are doing the best they can or if they are strained and overwhelmed. An example, I'm going to give you the first one, is I am in complete control and fully confident. And again, this is a continuum, folks. In relation to my personal power, the question is, and again, a good question, how confident are you in your ability to meet any and all challenges? I am in complete control and fully confident runs the gamut to I am helpless, depressed, insecure, doubting, and powerless. And again, I offer people who I offer this exercise to not so much accept the whole left side or the whole right side, but to underline the pieces that apply to their lives. And there is a certain both and-ness relative to the coping. I can be both in complete control as well as doubting and feeling somewhat powerless or insecure. Self-awareness is about both and-ness. I am both a beast and an angel at the same time. I am both confident and doubting at the same time. And I think we've all been there. I think we've all been there when that self-doubt creeps in. Is a monster. This is just a piece that I learned from the life model of social work practice I mentioned earlier by Carol Germain, who was someone I was blessed to have several courses with her when I was in the School of Social Work. And these are just descriptions of what stress is, what life stressors are, what coping is. If a life stressor is affecting me, then I either cope with it maladaptively or ineffectively, or I cope with it adaptively or effectively. And in coping with it, if I cope with it maladaptively or ineffectively, the outcome might be illness or addiction. If I cope with it adaptively or effectively, that outcome hopefully is wellness, a sense of well-being, and improvement in the quality of my life. So those are just descriptions of that particular image that, again, I ask people to image in on and tell me what they see and how they see it, and respond to their own experiences. And that couples well with, this previous diagram. Stage 1, stabilization tasks. I included this part because for me, when I offer people to look at these stabilization tasks in stage 1, and especially as it relates to holiday stress and anxiety management, I offer this to them as, remember that diagram relative to performance support around the University of Southern California, looking at the person in an environment, their participation affects their performance. This is what this is about. When I talk to people about the stabilization tasks, I talk to them about these being occupations that will fuel stabilization, that will help them to move towards stabilization in their recovery process. And it really comes to form when we talk about, times of stress and anxiety. And again, these are the stabilization tasks or occupations. I call them tasks because I give people this as homework. And they come back to me and talk to me about it. And there's also an opportunity to prioritize what are the stabilization tasks that are most important for them to work on. And so again, I'm not going to go through these word by word, but clearly this is in your Recovery Coach Academy manual, and these are stabilization tasks that I'm demonstrating to you now how you might use them. The deepening tasks are the same. And notice, on the stabilization tasks, the top right-hand column, anxiety management. Learning how to ask for help and support. Learning to break the pattern of isolation. These all apply to managing holiday stress. The deepening tasks, the critical one here, is increase the ability to tolerate feelings and be aware what those feelings are. Be able to make distinctions between those feelings. And it's so much about an emotional detox that we constantly continue to need to go through. Those emotions are going to come through. How do I manage and cope with those emotions? I may not have them totally detoxed at this point, but I can certainly work in managing the stress to do a better job of coping with the emotions and the feelings that might be coming up during a difficult holiday season. I want people to be aware of what the pressures can be. Pressures awareness. We experience emotional and mental pressure from two sources. Externally from our environment and internally from inside ourselves. External pressure is a result of demands and expectations from people or situations in our environment. And think about the external pressures of holiday living. Internal pressure results from the demands that we make on ourselves. Oh, I got to give them this gift. I so disappointed people for so long. I want to make sure that they know that I'm doing better, and I want to give. When I may not have the ability to give money, but I certainly have the ability to give my time and my presence. Not with a TS, with a CE at the end. External pressure can often be managed more effectively by our learning more effective communication and relationship skills, that ongoing learning, that's a process of stabilization. And the internal pressure can often be lessened by examining our own beliefs and expectations to make sure that our expectations and beliefs are reasonable and realistic. Again, getting people to think about the stress and the ability to manage the stress and the anxiety in a way they may not have thought about before. Expect the pressure. How do you manage the pressure? Holiday pressure assessment. What do you think or believe that you should or must do or be during this holiday season? Again, I give this to recoveries as well as participants in the Recovery Coach Performance Support meetings as an activity they do after the course. An activity they do after the course, and they given somebody they care about or care for to do as well. And I ask them to identify what are the shoulds and musts that they have during this holiday season. And which of these shoulds or musts can you let go of? What a challenge. And how do you stop shoulding on yourself? You stop stressing. holiday wants and needs. And I'm rushing through these, folks, because you're going to have these, as a part of your, your enrollment in being Billy, for to get these PowerPoints. Again, I'm trying to make them more and more valuable, because so much of the work that I see myself doing is this has to be practical. I want you to be able to walk away with it and use it in your own efforts to help yourself and to help other people. So what are the holiday wants and needs assessment? What do you think or believe that you want and need during this holiday season? Again, I ask the person to think about that question, verbalize what their perception is, and then ask them to list, I want, I need, I want, I need, I want, I need, I want, I need. Building holiday frustration strength. Again, the intentional learning that I think is a critical part of this process of helping people through. The ability to build, build people. This is so much about building people. This is so much about building a life that works with greater sense of well-being and a greater quality of life that allows a person to perform their roles better and to participate in life better. So building holiday frustration strength is to maintain good health with proper diet and exercise, to identify the sources of frustration and to deal with what you can change and let go of what you cannot change, the serenity prayer. To examine your beliefs and expectations. Are they realistic? Are they achievable? Learn to delay gratification. Let go of I want what I want when I want what I want. Balance your dependence on others with independence. Interdependence works well. And become more emotionally intelligent, more emotionally healthy by letting go of the need for excessive approval of others and practicing acceptance of who I am, what my limitations are, what my prospects are, what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, what my opportunities are, and what the threats are to my ability to have a good holiday. That's a SWOT. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I do SWOTs with people during holiday season. Building holiday internal conflict strength. Think about internal conflicts that can go on during this season. Stop avoiding making decisions and delaying decision making. Get off the fence. When you sit on the fence, it hurts your butt. How to make a decision. Gather as much information as you possibly can. Clearly identify and define your choices and your options. Weigh the pluses and the minuses, the positive and negative aspects of each choice and option. Be clear about what you want versus what you need. And again, folks, this is nice work to do with a recovery individually or within groups, so as a group activity. Make a decision, not a choice. And make a choice, make a decision, make a choice. Get the hell off the fence. That ambivalence. That's where, the motivation interviewing helps. Building holiday anxiety, fear, strength. And again, the concept is strength. How do we, recovery coaching is a strength-based process. Let's help people to build strengths. Much of our anxieties result of irrational beliefs of our hurtful thinking when we expect or predict the worst. It may be helpful to learn to carefully examine beliefs and the consequences and the risks involved, develop a plan for dealing with the risks or even the consequences, and talk over your fears with someone you trust to give you honest feedback to help you put your fears in proper perspective. Recovery coach, recovery coach, recovery coach, or sponsor, or mentor. Let help help. Emphasize that. Let help help. Tips for managing stress. Truth. Get honest about who and how you are. Share yourself with someone who will listen and care. Keeping to yourself will only add to the stress and the worry. Sharing your truth allows others to know and connect with you. Sharing will help release fear and allow you to focus better. Information. Avoid being ignorant and be willing to learn. Identify the facts of the situation, who, what, where, when, why, where, and how. Stress and anxiety can affect your ability and willingness to gather accurate information or misread reality due to fear. Again, fear is about control, and many times control is about controlling reality, in our minds at least. Tips for managing stress continued. Priorities. Keep your purpose and your plan clear. Lead your life with purpose and vision. Priority number one, don't quit on yourself. Keep it simple, sensitive. Decide what is most important for you. Pay attention to what is heart and meaning for you. Focus on your most important people, places, and routines, and practice them. Let help help is support. Let your helpers help you. Let your helpers hear your needs, fears, and concerns. Let your helpers be involved with you. They have a commitment to you. Engage them in that commitment. And let your helpers connect with you and support you. Again, folks, this isn't just about helping other people. This is also about helping ourselves. And helpers can struggle to let help help. That was a lesson I thought I had mastered. And when my heart failure occurred, gosh, it was hard to let help help. Thank goodness I've been able to do that, because it's kept me out of the hospital for over a year, and the quality of my life has clearly improved, as well as my own sense of self and well-being. Truth, information, priority, supports are tips for stress management. I've got about a couple of minutes. Any thoughts, questions, or comments? Yeah, I love that beast and angel piece too. That's about our both and this star. It's about appreciating the fact. It's not either or. It's not black and white thinking. It's about both and this. I am both a beast and an angel. Glad you enjoyed it, Bill. I hope the information helps. When I do whatever I do, my bottom line is that I hope it helps. I hope it helps. Yeah, accept the pressure. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems. If I don't accept it, how am I going to handle it? For sure, focus on the right things. It's about empowerment. It's not about the powerlessness that we've experienced over time. I do hope it helps, Bill. Yeah, you're right, Star. It is about the human condition that we are all challenged to manage on a daily basis. I'm glad I hope it helps. Yeah, night travels, but I'll be well, New Haven is where I grew up in. So, having a recovery community center in New Haven is a boon, and I'm very much appreciative of it. Thank you, Francis. Thanks for listening and viewing. Again, folks, this is a webinar that I think you can use. I share what I learned so that nobody else gets burned. Believe that. I will, Rita. Believe me, I will. I will. I think it's Chapel Street, and I spent a lot of time on Chapel Street. I grew up on Day Street, which is right, runs perpendicular to Chapel Street. I know New Haven well. Yep, that's a familiar address, and gosh, the building looks gorgeous. What a resource to New Haven. Glad you made it, Ray. Well, until next month, folks, thank you. Thank you so much for attending and participating, and I appreciate it. Be well. Live life well. Happy holidays to all. I think we're done.